Right guys, welcome back to this Mini Cooper S tear down and rebuild. So if any of you guys remember, we took out the supercharger of this car to rebuild it. That is now been fully done. And now we're gonna be reinstalling it into this Mini Cooper. Now, many of you guys would have seen in the last video how badly corroded this was. And also the crankshaft sensor was out. So I've already put a new O-ring on that. I've just put a new coolant inlet on the block itself as well. It comes with a new one in the kit along with a load of new O-rings, because as many of you guys know, the water pump then locks into here and seals against this flange, so then coolant can go through the block. So if you can see here, I've got all the bolts in position so you guys can see, so you know which ones go where. And many of you guys, when you do take the supercharger off, will probably think you're going crazy when you see that this hole's bigger. This hole's bigger because the supercharger's got an alignment down on it, which aligns it here, so you can bolt it straight up, so it sits into the groove, because if there wasn't, you wouldn't know where to put them and they wouldn't sit flush. To make sure it sits flush on the block to be able to bolt it up. Now, usually what I like to do is I start with this one, I get this one screwed in. I don't fully tighten that one down, so that way you're able to wiggle the supercharger and move it into position where you want it. And then I'll get the alignment down in, because it's quite hard to get the alignment down on that without it slipping back down. So this is the one you want to put in first, and I'll show you as we go. And we pull it back in. What we're going to do is quickly whip this alternator off. We'll leave that hanging while we bolt the supercharger back up. You get to see all the bolts, they're all 13 mil. Don't mix them up, and you'll see how we do it. So we'll just whip off our alternator. And we'll just move this down here to leave it to hang. Now what we're going to do is get our supercharger. And that's aligned. Now we'll stick the middle one straight in, just like that. Then we can put our other ones in. And then we'll put the other one down here. Now what we'll go ahead and do is bolt it up. And that's the supercharger now back on. So now the supercharger's back on the car, what we're gonna go ahead and do here is we're gonna pass this tube back through where it's meant to go. So then once that's done, you can start bringing in your tensioner bolt again to retighten the belt tensioner. So we'll just tighten that up. Once that's done, then you've got this coolant hose right here. You'll have to try and bring it back as much as possible, the hose, to slip it on. And now that's on. So now we just got to put on our other water pump hose, which is right here. We'll just put that on, turn that to there. Tighten that up, which is now done. And now we've got our other thermostat coolant pipe, which we'll now put on. And once that's on, then what we can do is remove this bolt right here. Then we just disconnect that, bring that over with this as well, which then locks these two together. Then we can literally bolt that back up and plug our sensor back in. So if you can see here, I've got a new gasket for the other side of the intercooler where the horn's meant to go, but I am waiting for the new bypass valve, and because it's a modified one, it's taking time to be made, which is what you would expect. So when that comes, then we can put the other side of the intercooler on, but we're just gonna finish up putting all the little niggly bits back on here so we can get everything back sorted here before we start bolting up that side of the engine once everything arrives, because I've got more stuff to come for this side of the engine as well. So I'm just trying to finish up everything. So that's why I haven't put that side on. Many of you are going to be asking why I put the bypass valve on, why I done this, why I done that. That's the reason why I haven't done that yet. Now we're going to put back in the dipstick oil tube, and you will see here I've already put a new O-ring on that as well because it comes with it in the kit. So we're just going to put that back in. So you can see here, it does go back in, just like that. And then you just got to remember what bolts go where for it. So that's our 13mm there. So those are the two 13mm that we would have removed for the dipstick. Now all we need to do is bolt back up the alternator, and that's about it for putting everything back together. Still remember, they're all long 10mm bolts. You can't really forget them. Once you've got your 10mm in, then you just want to, and that's now your alternator back on as well. So you'll see there, guys, there isn't really nothing else we can do today. We've managed to put the supercharger back on. We can't put the other side of the intercooler because, as I said, the bypass valve ain't here. We can't put this other piece on the plastic piece, the intake pipe for the intercooler, purely because, again, that bolts onto this horn along with the bypass valve. So without the bypass valve, I can't even put this back on. So literally, I'm as probably angry as you guys that I didn't get to finish the whole job, but that's putting the supercharger back on, and those are the main bits for it. So I'm glad you got to see that. The other bits, obviously, I will record it, finishing it all up, because we'll finish up everything on that side to build the engine back up completely. But yes, that's mainly what many of you guys are going to be watching and coming to, is for that side of the videos, reinstalling it, because many of you would have forgot what bolt goes where, how to put it all back on and everything like that. Like I said, it really isn't hard to bolt the supercharger back on. You just got to be very, very careful. Align it properly and put the bolts in, and do not cross thread them, because remember, they're on the block. Even though you'll be able to get someone to probably, or you can drill them out yourself because it's right there, but you don't want to have to do that. So just be careful when going forward for all the steps, and do make sure to replace all your seals, all your gaskets, and everything you need to. Do not just think to whip it all in, bolt it all up and think, forget it. No, you don't want to do that. But the most important step, I must tell you, is not to cross thread the bolts. And please, please make sure your coolant flange is back in for the block. I've seen two people, even on YouTube, which bolt this all up, start the car up only to have coolant going everywhere from that flange where the water pump hasn't gone back into the flange on the block, and it starts leaking everywhere. So make sure that water pump is back into the flange on the block, otherwise it will leak everywhere. It is so important. And like I said, mostly everything here is a 30mm bolt apart from the alternator bolts, so you cannot get it mixed up at all when putting it back together. But thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and that is now the supercharger back on this Mini Cooper S. Thank you very much for watching. It's BMW Dr. Dean here, and goodbye.